Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Fans of DC Universe podcast, the only DC Universe podcast for the fans by the fans, and the best resource for all DC Universe news and discussion on everything DCU. Joining us today are me, Nathan.Payson, New 52.
Hello.
Aquamon C137.
Y'all.
And Dukect45.
Hi.
Today we are talking about The Road to Titan Season 2, Young Justice Episode 21, and more. But before we start, our heart goes out to Warren Appleby, a stunt coordinator on Titans, who died after a stunt rehearsal went wrong. For the next 2 weeks, we will be having a moment of silence in honor of him. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you for the moment of silence. It only seems appropriate to start with our new segment, The Road to Titans. Every week we will discuss something in preparation for Titan Season 2. This week we will be focused on the Titans trailer, which just came out, featuring Robin, Hawk, Dove, the trailer focused on the Titans of the past, consisting of Robin, Hawk, Dove, Aqualad, and Wonder Girl, and the new Teen Titans, or Titans, it's unclear, featuring Beast Boy, Raven, Starfire, Dick Grayson, and Jason Todd, and maybe more. But of course, before we start discussion on the trailer, I have to play one iconic line from the trailer.
Let's go. Titans are back, bitches!
There you go. So, what do you guys think of the trailer?
Well, when I first saw it, I think it's a lot more upbeat, a lot more. There was something missing in the entire season 1. It was too dowy, too dark and such. But here, even though it's a short trailer, it's a lot more pep and fun. And I'm hopeful that with this new DC Titans season 2, I'm hoping that it will actually have more fun and more interesting stuff happen. So that's my hope.
I really like the trailer. One thing I found interesting is comparing the first season and second season. Like, I was watching the first season trailer is like much longer and more elongated, but it's also a lot slower and it's a lot bleaker. Like, I remember I was watching the first trailer and there's like haunting laughter. You see haunting image of like Dick Grayson's parents dying, and then you don't see a lot of Beast Boy, Starfire, or Raven outside of like little images here and there. And so it was very weird, and that was very much a mood setter, whereas this season it's like character. Like, if you look, like, you saw the entire Deathstroke family was in there, except for maybe Grant. I don't remember if I saw Grant, but the entire Deathstroke family was in there, just very quietly. Like, I had to press start, pause to find it. Superboy and Crypto were in there. We saw Aqualad for the first time, and I love how they just show Aqualad like an image of him, and they don't actually go, "It's Aqualad," you know? It was kind of interesting in that sense, but a lot more action-packed. I absolutely agree. Aquaman, what do you think of the trailer?
I liked it a lot. Definitely looking forward to it, and yeah, I agree. It's definitely more upbeat, and I think Jason Todd just like nailed it with that line as far as like the excitement for the second season. I feel like they're kind of cherry picking from certain comics though, with like the way the show's going. Like, and you're right. I was mistaken about the 1980s, the first 6. That wasn't the arc I was thinking. I was thinking of like the 84 run.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like they're going with, you know, how it ended with Robin going into that dream sequence, which kind of felt like the 1984 run when like it was that 5-part, you know, and everyone has to like fight themselves, like a evil version.
I have not seen that yet. I think you're the only person who's read it.
Yeah, Titans is like one of the comics that I haven't read all of them, but I've read a lot of the Titan comics for sure. That along with like Young Justice League and stuff like that. But so like in the 1984 run, they go for the first 5. They deal with Trigon again. He like, you know, he comes back and he makes everyone like fight an evil versions of themselves. And there's that one clip where Starfire and Donna Troy are fighting what looks to be like the season 1 version of Starfire. It kind of looked like that, you know, when she has the lasso. So I'm wondering if that's fighting an evil version of herself, possibly. And then
interesting. One thing I was taken aback by a little bit is they didn't show Trigon off at all. Like, they just assumed the first episode already happened, which is kind of interesting because rather than like talk about the cliffhanger at all, they just pretend that it didn't exist. which kind of makes sense because I think originally the plan was for the that not to be the season finale. And they're like, you know what? Let's do something no one's ever done before and make the episode before the season finale the finale. Ooh, it was really interesting. New 52, what do you think of the trailer?
Yeah, it was really action-packed. I liked the new costumes. Seeing Donna and Aqualad in theirs, very awesome. I'm ready for it. I'm so ready. I've been waiting to see the whole dynamic between Wonder Girl and Starfire develop. So I just want to get started. I want September 6th to be here, and that actually got me hyped up for it.
No,
It was, yeah.
I would just like to add that on your like synopsis that you'll be doing this week for like the Titans comics, it was an excellent pick for the first three from the 1980s run. Like the first one just setting things up, then issue 2 because that's the introduction of the Terminator, Deathstroke, and that's also you get to see the first Ravager, his oldest son. And that'd be a good way for people to get into it. And then the third issue is the introduction of Dr. Light, which is who I believe is in that trailer. Who they're fighting in that tunnel before you see.
I think it is.
I'm guessing so because the gear he's wearing, he has that light like on his chest, and his helmet definitely looks like it's a Dr. Light helmet. So I'm thinking maybe that's what that is. And then I like reading those three, and I would recommend people check out, the 1984, the Trigon arc, the 5-part series. And then something that has me confused, like they're saying that like Jericho, his youngest son, from what I remember in the comics, he so in like a flashback series that Wilson goes through, like his son Jericho gets kidnapped by some like military group or something like that, and they cut his they cut his throat. And that makes it so he can't talk anymore. Right. But they're saying he's deaf, and I don't recall him being deaf in the comics. He's mute for sure, but I could totally be wrong on that. But I don't remember him actually being deaf, just mute.
I don't think. I was watching the trailer. You can see him signing a little bit because Jericho's in there really briefly, but you can see him signing. I don't think they didn't make it clear in the trailer. At least he was like deaf so much as like it was unclear because you didn't see his mouth moving or anything. So it's possible he was deaf or possible, he's mute. I think either way you can tell the story. I think it's much better. Like I think the mute would make a little bit more sense, just from trying to write this like story perspective, because it'd be a little harder to have both sides signing when probably only Jericho can sign. And of course, we don't know how that's all going to work because if you guys have been watching the Rebirth Deathstroke run, Jericho has like a suit which lets him telepathically communicate stuff. So that'll be interesting. For those who didn't know what Aquamon was talking about real quick with the Titan stuff, I'm every week for the next couple of weeks, I'm reading through the new Teen Titans run that Perez did, and I'm just reading 3-4 issues, trying to keep it small, and I'm just going to write a little brief summary of every single issue, and then theoretically, by the time Titans season 2 is over, I'll have gone through a lot of the list that I want to go through, and hopefully it'll make a more enjoyable experience for people. Just being able to see where the recent stuff and like the stuff you're seeing in Titans also lines up with stuff from the old comics. So I think that's super interesting.
The one thing I want to ask is, what do you think of the person playing Bruce Wayne, the older version of Bruce Wayne, Ian Glenn from Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. And fun fact, I'm actually watching Game of Thrones right now. I'm on season 2, episode 2, so I'm super early in. But I do really like Ser Jorah, which I'm pretty sure is who he is. And it's a great show, and I think he's a great actor. I did forget that Bruce Wayne was in it because there's so many new characters introduced in this. Like, I hope you guys can agree. It's like Aqualad. You have all 3 of the Deathstroke family. You have Wonder Girl's first costume. You have Crypto, Superboy. Like, there's just so many new characters. It's just I forgot about Bruce Wayne, which is so funny because that should be such like the biggest of them all.
Yeah, to me, honestly, he came off more as what they're currently depicting Alfred as, like a hardened,
Yeah.
strong guy. So at first I had to be like, oh wait, no, that's Bruce, not Alfred.
Oh yeah, that does remind me a bit of Alfred. But then again, people think Batman should be this big hulking type of character, but we seem to forget that he's a ninja as well. So
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I just was saying that's true. I don't think that's the problem for me. For me, it was just like he was doing very Alfredy things, like going out to meet Dick. Usually that's an Alfred thing where he goes out and brings him to Bruce. It's stuff like that.
Although I felt like that scene happened at the Wayne Manor. So it's unclear that Bruce went to Dick. It seems like Dick went to Bruce, just from where that seemed to be.
When Alfred like parks in the front.
Oh yeah. Oh wait. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I like the look of him. Personally, again, I don't think it's like, again, it's the deception of what Bruce, Wayne and all that. I'm like, I think most major stuff is. I think the last time we actually had someone you wouldn't believe who was Batman, I think was Christian Bale. You wouldn't believe this person was Batman. I mean, the way he looked. I mean, he's like, very, he's not big and buff, which I think sadly, and DC seems to forget about that, and most fans think to forget about that too. Because again, Batman is at the core, like he's a detective and a ninja. So if you want to have someone like that, I'm like, yeah, of course he's probably more chilled, older, more wiser, probably knows more about sneaking in to stuff like that. As he gets older and stuff. Unlike, say, in the video games, he like gets more as he goes older, he gets bigger and bigger. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just glad for this actor that he's gonna come out before the Crisis Batman debuts. Because people are gonna be comparing him to Conroy.
Well, the Conroy stuff is always gonna be there.
Well, I'm so excited for Crisis, you guys. Yeah, Aquaman.
Oh yes.
As far as my thoughts on the guy from Game of Thrones, which I loved him in that, and I think he's a great actor for sure. I mean, Game of Thrones is the only thing I've seen him in, though, to be honest. But the only gripe or complaint I have about it was just I felt like you could still really pick up on his like a British accent. He didn't sound like a Bruce Wayne, like when he's talking to him in the hallway and stuff like that. Talking about seeing his friends in the news. But I mean, I have faith that he'll be able to do the role. It was funny when they're walking down the hallway and like you can see like Dick Grayson kind of like sigh or whatever when he's like giving him a little lecture about seeing his friends in the news. And I was just like, I bet in his head he's like, I killed you in a dream sequence.
And I'm like, maybe he's sighing because, like, dude, you're in the Justice League. All your friends, your friends around in the news every 5 minutes. So, I mean, you're not one at all.
Wait, do we think this Bruce is taking place in current day or in flashbacks?
Definitely
it
current.
had to been current because he talks about seeing him in the news, and then he says his new friends, some new friends too. Or perhaps maybe he was referencing Hawk and Dove, who he told him not to be hanging out with.
Did he? I don't remember that.
Yeah, because in episode 2, Hank makes a little cuts into Robin a little bit, saying, like, I thought the bats didn't want you hanging out with us or something like that. After that epic fight scene in the street.
Yeah. I'm curious about, and this is something that threw me off in the trailer a little bit, because the first season of Titans didn't mention it at all, and only very quietly hinted at it, is that there's a new Teen Titans and there's the old Teen Titans. And we're saying Teen Titans, it's probably Titans and New Titans or whatever. But
it's the New Titans. That's, I think we're moving towards. I honestly don't know if I really wish they could have done the Teen Titans, but I think people would have been maybe confused because there's a cartoon version that's doing, Teen Titans Go versus Teen Titans. They might get like brand confusion, so they probably just said Titans and that's it. So
I think it's possible it could be the Teen Titans was the first one, and now we have the Titans. And I don't know how they'll go about it, but it was interesting because I was thinking about something Aquaman was saying, and you were saying that issue 1 was the Trigon story, right? And then issue 2 is Deathstroke stuff, and then issue 3 is Dr. Light. And you saying that it seemed like all 3 events were going to happen in the trailer. I wonder if this is a more exact representation of the comics, because each of the comics are self-contained stories. And I wonder, because I've heard rumors that's more episodic than the first season, which is more serial. I wonder if it's going to be a direct adaptation of the comics. In the same vein, we're going to Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a very direct adaptation of the book. I found that interesting. Obviously, with some character differences here and there, but even then, it seems like they're setting up the characters to be more aligned, which is really interesting.
Are you, Nathan? Are you referencing like what I said last week about how like I feel like they're taking a lot of the main points from like the first 6 issues of like the 1980 run, and then like the 5-part with the 84 run with Trigon, and
well, you just said it earlier in the podcast, but you were talking about the what each of the issues was, and I was thinking, oh wait, I feel like all those things are going to show up. And you could say that sort of the opening arc, the Terror of Trigon or whatever that you were talking about earlier with the 5-issue arc from 1984, that arc is like the adaptation of the first season.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like them getting together, which was a very slow burn, and then them fighting Trigon. And they take that, and then they go 1980, issue 2, 1980, issue 3. And this is unlikely, but it seems like it could be possible, which is kind of unique.
Yeah, and I guess like last thing I'd say about the Titans is I'm curious how they're going to incorporate Superboy into those stories, because my exposure with my exposure with Connor Kent is like from the Geoff Johns run in 2003, and I mean that's the look he's going for, and that guy really looks the part for sure. But I'm wondering how they're gonna mix those two, or if he's just going to be like cherry picking certain stories from Geoff Johns' run, because I mean I know he's like working behind the scenes there, so I'm sure he's going to take some bits from his own stories. But I'm curious to see how they're going to make Superboy work with the rest of the original Teen Titans.
Yeah, I want to say one last thing before we move on. I read a lot of complaint about how Nightwing didn't show up. Everyone was hoping Nightwing showed up, and instead we got more Dick Grayson Robin. The confusion, though, and this is the thing I want people to think about, is how many times did we actually see Dick Grayson as Robin? We saw him in the earlier cutscene with which seemed to be the old Teen Titans, but did we see him as one of the new Teen Titans? Or is it possible that those were all flashbacks? Because I'm thinking that they didn't show him off in the costume as Nightwing because they wanted to keep it a secret. I just found that really interesting. Any thoughts?
I agree. I think that's exactly what it was. I think like that hallway scene with them walking down and everything with like Donna Troy and Dove in the front. Like I think that's a flashback, and I think that we're gonna see the Nightwing suit pretty soon. The only thing that makes me question that is there's some images I want to say of it looked like Robin was fighting Jason Todd Robin in what looked like the Batcave, but it looked like it was kind of like there was like debris and rubble and stuff. So I'm wondering if that was just is part of like one of the dream sequence things, and instead of like Robin fighting an evil version of himself, like from the Trigon arc, perhaps he's fighting like a Jason Todd Robin or something. But yeah, I think what you said was probably accurate, or at least that's what I believe is going to happen.
Or Jason Todd is trying to free Dick Grayson.
Yeah, that'd be definitely plausible.
Well, let's move on to what's coming out this week in terms of comics. So, new comics that have come to DC Universe this week, including Adventures of Super Sons #1, Batman #52, Deathstroke #34, Green Arrow #43, Green Lanterns #52, Harley Quinn #47, Justice 2 Chapter 69, Justice League #5, Nightwing #47, Shade the Changing Woman #6, Unexpected #3, and newly digitized Aaron the Immortal #5, Orion the Immortal, haha, Orion Lord of Atlantis Special #1, Detective Comics #320, Doom Patrol #10, Our Man #19 and 20, House of Mystery #176, LAW #4, which I don't know if it's Law or if it's LAW. I can't tell you how they pronounce it in the actual comic. And Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane, Dawn's very favorite comic, #10.
Speaking of Don, I hope he gets better. He's out this week because he's sick.
Yeah, and then they're like a week away from Tunatonian and Don are actually planning on meeting up together, which looks kind of cool, like in real life. So that'll be fun. Hopefully they send some pictures to us.
Yeah, get better, Don.
Yeah, get better.
So what comics did you guys read this week? Either from this list or off the list?
Well, I did read Adventures of Super Sons #1. It was pretty fun. Pretty fun. Nice little romp with them. And, even though I was a little bit concerned with the mini version of the Legion of Doom, that sort of thing, I was like, okay, that's a little bit cheesy and such. But I am a bit hooked about how they're going to get out of this situation. So, yeah, I did read Adventures of Super Sons and such. So, yeah, some good stuff.
It's such a fun issue. Damien is like an absolute jerk, you guys. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to, but like he's such a lovable jerk. Like it's hard not to like be in his boat. Like there's this one moment in the comic where he controls a giant robot and he like uses the giant robot to like punch Damien and kick him around. And Damien's like,
Yes.
I feel like those last couple of hits weren't from the person who was actually who was normally controlling the robot. And he's like, Damon was like, "What? No, definitely not." It was just like their like relationship is just so wonderful. I know New 52. You've been reading Wonder Woman #51, which was last week, right?
Yeah, that one came out last week. It involves Diana going to prison to visit Mayfly and trying to help her pretty much change her ways. That was a pretty good issue. I know you read it too, right, Nathan?
I did. I read it last week for the New to DCU book club. Of course, you're reading it for the Wonder Woman book club, which is just as awesome.
Yeah. I've also been reading Blast from the Past, but Selena's Big Score and the other selections for World of Wonder, which are Wonder Woman, George Prez's Wonder Woman issues 7 through 9.
So, how is Selena's Big Score? Because it's interesting because it's a one issue. It's a like one issue, but it's really more of like an extended story, right?
Yeah. I'm right now about 20 pages in. The art is gorgeous, like always. Darwin Cook delivers, and the story's pretty good so far.
That's good. What's it about?
It's a typical Catwoman. Like she's low on her funds. People think she's dead, but now she's trying to get some money, and she has a big
Wait,
score.
funds or funds?
Funds.
So like I was like she's running out of fun. It's like we need to give her some happiness in her life and some spring to her step.
Oh no. There's pretty dark stuff in there, so
She's definitely not getting her funds.
yeah, no, not the funds, but funds.
Aquaman, what have you been reading this week?
The newest DC that I picked up this last week was The Deceased, and man, it's going great, dude. I mean, the Taylor doesn't disappoint. He really knows how to step up the oh crap factor, man. Just make your jaw drop. I don't want to spoil too much because I know it's a new issue. Some people might not have read it, but gosh, man, like the last panel, like there's we'll say an atomic bomb that explodes, and it looks like pretty much like some of the rest of your characters might be eating the dust, and it's just wow, it's really good, man. Definitely, I think Deceased is one of the best runs going on right now, and I really am curious as how he's going to wrap it up with just another 2 issues. I kind of want there to be more.
Yeah, I just keep hearing great things about Deceased. Like everyone keeps praising it. But I do feel like, and I was thinking about this, you want more issues, which I think is totally fair. But my understanding is part of what's so great about the series is it knows it only has 6 issues and it's trying to do as much craziness as possible in those 6 issues. And I think it's the same thing with Elseworld stories. If you tried to write a 40 arc story, you got to take it slow, right? You can't make every episode action packed. But if it's only like 6 issues, each like you can cover like 14 characters and watch like 14 different characters die and crazy stuff happen like in like a matter of panels because he only has 6 pages or 6 issues for a whole Elseworlds. But I heard there was some real quick. I heard there was some controversy with Deceased number 4. Do you know what any of it's about?
Oh, you mean about Sergeant Rock?
It's about like the Robin stuff or something, like Batman.
I don't know if you'd title it as like controversy, like Batman. Spoilers. He fell victim to the anti-life equation, along with practically everyone from the Bat family, except for Damian. And there's a scene where you think that Bruce possibly survived because you see the Batwing, but it turns out to be somebody else.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. Duke, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, I mean, it looks like again, Damian. It seems like in these big books. I mean, I recently read also DC Metal, which was actually really good, and such. And I'm like, man, he always seems to survive in these type of weird and these like cataclysmic events and such. It's weird. It's not like anyone else. It seems like he's like this, not anyone else, but it just seems like he does seem to survive, that instinct to survive. Like he's like the one Robin that has a like ultra survival instinct.
Just because Damian's awesome.
I know, right? See, but there is one Robin who's better, you guys. Well, actually, there's a couple Robins. Of course, the best one is Jarro. It's Jarro, the amazing octopus squid thing, who's not actually a squid, but a child / not a child of an alien from outer space who thinks Batman's his father. But we're not going to go into that part. But if you guys love Jarro, which you guys totally, which I know all of you guys do, even if you've never actually seen a picture of Jarro, he got like an issue all to himself in Justice League number 28. Well, not quite all to himself, but he fights the Legion of Doom single-handedly, and it's jaw-dropping. It was so good. Dick Grayson's also a better Robin than Damian. But speaking of Damian, I was reading Batman Beyond last week, the Rebirth version. I read everything on DCU, and there's an arc with Damian where he takes over for Ra's al Ghul, and he becomes the new Ra's al Ghul, head of the Demon. And it was very weird because to hear what was going on with Deceased, because Damian goes a very different route in that series. So it's very interesting that like it's clear that writers who write futures, like what would the future Batman look like, have no idea whether Damian would take over or not. And so it's very like they're very torn on it, which I find interesting. Moving on. So this week, Young Justice episode 20 and Swamp Thing episode 10 came out. Oh wait, wow, that's from last week. Wow, oops, sorry.
That's fine.
That is incorrect. This week, Young Justice episode 21 came out, and it featured Granny Goodness and Calder's relationship and an interesting ethical question about metas. So, what do you guys think about the episode?
Yeah, these episodes have been getting a lot more solid. It's a lot more to do with the overarching plot developed earlier with Apocalypse. So I'm interested to see what Granny is going to do about the information she got in the post-credits scene. Did you all watch the post-credits?
Yeah. So,
are we spoiling? Are we just...
Yeah, spoil ahead. I mean, we all assumed it was going to happen at some point, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for spoiling it, here, I'll go ahead. So basically, Granny discovers that the secret to the dark side equation is a bunch of cupcakes from outer space. There you go.
Oh my gosh, Aquaman, by the way, that spoiler you gave last week, I actually believed it.
Oh, really?
For like a second I was, and then it got to the end and I was like, how are they gonna do that? It won't make sense. And then I saw the end of Swamp Thing and I was like, oh my gosh, why did I believe him?
Wasn't that amazing how they were able to incorporate Doomsday? I thought that was
I
excellent.
know, right? Speaking of Doomsday was incredible in Krypton, you guys. Phenomenal.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like, if anyone actually saw Krypton, oh my god, that episode. Doomsday is phenomenal. Favorite character. But don't give Doomsday
was
pants.
like,
Doomsday does
it
not
was like
deserve
movie
pants.
You got earned that.
He earned those pants.
Wore 'em well.
Like, how do you even fit pants for him? It's like, can you imagine General Zod's request? He's like, so I know I've brainwashed Doomsday. Sorry, I'm spoiling parts of this, but I know I brainwashed Doomsday, but I need pants for him because the last thing the rebels can see is his private parts.
Just do the same thing Marvel does with the Hulk. Just give him like extra stretch. There you go.
It was so weird, but no, I definitely just. But no, in all seriousness, I am gonna spoil the post-credit scene. Granny found the secret to the dark anti-life equation. I'm not gonna spoil what it is. It's definitely not cupcakes from outer space. It might be a trident in Atlantis, or it might not, or it could be puppies. That are just in disguise, Beast Boy in disguise. You will never know. But it was like one of those bone-chilling endings, and I was like, "Oh my god, what the frick?" And now I want to see what happens next.
Like, what are they going to do with that character? I'm
Yeah,
actually scared for that person now.
Talking about Overlord
yeah.
or the one that you the person
We
that
don't
you
want to
realize-
spoil it. The person who the
Yeah.
person who's the key to the anti-life equation.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I don't want to spoil it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. I won't either. I thought the episode was better than some from the second half. But I also kind of feel like it just like not that it was great, it just wasn't bad. Kind of like I felt like just not a lot seemed to happen. Like I felt like they spent too much time with Mel and his girl. Her name.
Karen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and I understand the Young Justice writers don't do anything, everything has a purpose, and I know that'll lead up to something later on, but I felt like they spent a lot of time on that when I wish they would have done more with, like, the team and stuff like that. I just felt like they kind of real quick broke in and they got them back kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, I just felt like it was...
Well,
I don't know
actually, it is leading to something, and I actually read an article which is giving what they think what it is leading up to. Just give me a second. Okay, so in the episode, there was this moment where Geoforce said, "Do you guys know who?" Sorry, I'm trying to find it. Do you guys know who Infinity Incorporated is, or something along those lines? And everyone went, and like it didn't. No one knew because do any of you guys know what Infinity Incorporated is?
you got me on that one.
No.
So, Infinity Incorporated. So we just know that they've said something along the lines, and GeoForce has said this. But Infinity Incorporated is the version is like the Legion of Doom's sort of answer to the Teen Titans, but it's not really the Legion of Doom's answer so much as Lex Luthor's answer. And it comes from the miniseries 52. And in that story, this is coming from Screen Rant, by the way. Lex Luthor began selling metagene therapy to the public, allowing anyone who could afford it to buy themselves superpowers. As part of this, quote, everyman project, end quote, Luthor created his own in-house superhero team and dubbed them Infinity Incorporated, after buying the copyright of the original team's name. It seems a safe bet the Young Justice version of Infinity Incorporated will have a similar relationship to Lex Luthor. So it seems to me like we first have to introduce the ordinary people who can become metas. And that's part of what I think this issue was doing. And the next thing is Lex Luthor is going to take that to his advantage and create his own superhero team. And it's quite possible that it's like the Young Justice good guys versus the Young Justice bad guys, or something along those lines. Yeah, but so you're right, whoever said it, Aquamon. Everything, it does seem to have a purpose. And it's just been these little subtle teases. Like I was reading for a recap for today, and I was like, oh, like it's all sorts of just slightly subtle moments. For those curious, if you want to read more about Infinity Incorporated, you can read 52, or you can look up for content about Earth 2, because it's the Infinity Incorporated in 1984 was about the children and proteges of the Justice Society of America, including Batman's daughter Huntress and Hawkman's son Silver Scarab. I'm very confused by that comment. But they originally introduced as the Earth 2 equivalent to Teen Titans.
See, the version you described from 52 reminds me of Maxwell Lord and his team. I don't remember what they were called, but he also had like his own Justice League version of metas that he created. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting, and I hope that
But-
helps a little bit. But real quick, is Karen right? Okay, like Karen sort of asked this question of, will mankind fall behind if we don't, because we aren't metas? Like, will the ordinary people not be able to compete in the future because metas are becoming more and more and more common? And that's part of what's going on with the metahuman trafficking. And she worries that like mankind will outdate itself, which is kind of weirdly relevant for anyone who's reading House of X and Powers of X, but Jonathan Hickman, because the same sort of question is happening in a very different sense. And so it's really interesting. So would you guys give your child the meta serum?
So we're assuming that she actually altered her baby's DNA or whatever to be meta?
Oh, 100%. I'm almost 100% confident. She had the serum in there. She looked at the DNA. I think it's fair to assume that she did.
Oh yeah, I definitely assume that's what she did. I mean, it just almost wouldn't even say assume. I mean, it seemed kind of like, yeah, that's definitely what happened, since she shrunk down to like, that level and everything, and had the, the vial. So yeah, I think for sure that's what she did.
I don't think she was right in that, because she's gotten really far in her heroics by just being a smart human.
Right, but can every single person be smart? Like Karen was very smart, but will her child be super smart?
Mal isn't necessarily super smart, and he's still able to keep up and be a superhero as well whenever he was Guardian. And I don't think it was necessary. I can understand her fear, but also being a meta puts a target on your child. Being a meta is what's causing children to get kidnapped. Like, I don't think
Right.
it was smart.
But it is an interesting question, right? And I think that part of it is, obviously we don't live in a meta world, but if I could give my child superpowers, I totally would. Although I would hope that the superpowers wouldn't show up till they're like 18 years old or something, and they're old enough to understand what it all means, Wouldn't it be nice as I become 18? By the way, you guys were so nice about my birthday last week. But wouldn't it be nice as an 18-year-old to have superpowers just coming up? I feel like that'd be so cool. But
yeah, but they'd strike during puberty and be horrible.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, 18's not really puberty. 18's like post-puberty. So I don't know.
No, but I'm saying like powers typically in these stories develop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, and this isn't a knock on you, Nathan, by any means, but like the thought of 18-year-olds running around with superpowers is kind of scary.
But isn't that the whole plot of Young Justice?
But that's the thing, and when you look at that, it reminds me so much about how it reminds you of the X gene and all that stuff in mutants and such. With Marvel and X-Men and such, is that what do you do when you have this rise of powerful young people, and you have one of your heroes who's like a head of like a country, a prince or whatever. He's a metahuman and all that stuff. What happens if, say, some evil organizations or some more criminals, people who would take advantage of that, and they might cause lots of casual damage, colossal damage and all that type of stuff. So that's the thing. If humanity goes and just takes all the stuff, that might be good for the short term, but maybe in the long term, it could lead to that destroyed future that I think the younger Impulse or Flash or whatever came from. Remember that? Way back in season 2 of so yeah, that could have led to that.
I mean, I thought what happened was because of the reach, not because of. But I mean, I'm not. Maybe it's not. That's not true.
It was no, like, I mean, the eventual downfall was because of the reach, but it would be interesting though, because they say like whatever, time's malleable. I'm not gonna pretend like I understand timeline stuff, but like it would be interesting though if it's just like history going on, like a course correction kind of plot line, something like that. That would be interesting.
Like it's always going to lead to that eventual outcome.
Yeah, like you can't change the doom.
I still think Mal and Karen are really well off and they have a lot going for them. So having this fear of being left behind or their future kids being left behind, it didn't really make sense from their character's perspective. But then again, we haven't seen them since season 2. Or
other than that brief moment. Yeah. I will say this. We're talking about like the child's going to be working in 30 years. What will the world look like in 30 years?
Plus, they need someone to be a contemporary with John and Damien when they grow up.
Yeah, but let's be realistic. Do we want Mal's and their child to be
we could.
trained like Damien? It's like.
Well, they wouldn't have to be exactly like Damien. They would just have to be a powered person that's growing up at the same time as Damien.
I feel like that could be great. Yeah. So it seems like they're setting up like a bunch of really young children, right? And they've made a joke about it. Like Karen's like, we've been babysitting superpowered children for so long, and now we have a child coming on our way. And I think that's part of it too, is Karen sees like everyone she hangs out, all the children that their child will hang out with, they're all superpowered. And so I think that contributes to part of it. But also remember, 20 years, we're talking about what will happen in 20 years. And we don't know what this world will look like in 20 years. We know it's already crazy. Hopefully the whole metahuman trafficking and the targets on pain on their back will all disappear. And with something like Outsiders, you're seeing more welcoming and people being thankful for like having superheroes around. So I don't know. But I do think it'll be exciting to see how this metahuman plot moves forward, because I'm curious to see what Lex does with this, right? And so I think that'll be really fun. You never know, maybe this will lead to the demise. And I think this will be part of season 4. And I think this is definitely a season 4 plotline.
I do like that we got to see Calder and Wind again and actually see more of them.
Yeah.
But what do we think about Black Lightning noticing that Oracle was helping them? Well, I don't know if he knew that it was Oracle, but he recognized the tech as a bat tech, right?
Well, I don't know if he
knew. I was just gonna say, I don't think he knew that it was like bat tech or that he was talking to someone else. I thought he kind of was just like, "Are you talking to yourself?" kind of situation.
No, but he saw the aircraft when it comes in and blows up. It goes through the window. Remember, it shoots through the window and it crashes, hits Granny.
Yeah,
he noticed the aircraft flying away.
Yeah, he saw
what
looked
I don't know. But I feel like the existence of Oracle is partly known to the superheroes. I don't think this is the first rodeo. I'm trying to remember back to the beginning of season 3, but I'm pretty sure Oracle was like Black Lightning and Dick Grayson have teamed up before teamed up in Markovia, and Oracle was there.
If you remember, Oracle was only appearing in Dick's lenses, not on everybody else's. So they could know that she exists, but they don't know her involvement, because remember, Batman left the League and Lightning doesn't know everything that's happening with that other team or the other grouping of all the leaders.
Well, I looked at that scene as like when Black Lightning saw what it could have been a drone. I was thinking it was like the Batwing or something. I was thinking that like in his head, like Black Lightning's like he was just like, oh, Batman's coming to help us, because they had that little falling out discussion or whatever in the first episode, and I thought it was him just wondering what Batman's up to.
Yeah, I wonder. Duke, I assume you want to move on, so you've been rather quiet.
Yeah.
And we still have a bunch of stuff to talk about. So that's it for DC TV this week, but we do have a lot more news. DC comic sales are quote unquote plateauing and quote disheartening, according to Jim Lee. This comes courtesy of Newsrama, and I think this is a good article. I'll read parts of it in a second, because it talks about like DC Universe's placement in DC's future strategy. So I thought it was interesting. This is a quote from Lee. Quote this comes from Newsrama. Okay, quote. On the digital side, I think it's been pretty flat in recent years, which is a little disheartening, end quote. Lee told ICV2 about plateauing digital comic book sales. Quote, a lot is moving to subscription, and that has a downward pressure on transactional sales. But I think it's discouraging in general because everyone's talking about digital being the future. If there's anything that should continue to grow year in, year out, it should be that channel. The fact that it's kind of plateauing and we've hit a wall speaks a lot to different things, end quote, Lee continued. Quote, we need to reinvent what we're doing digitally. The subscription service that we're doing on DC Universe platform is part of that. We just have to get better at marketing to people that know our characters, love our characters, but aren't buying comics. As for what digital sales and plateau and digital sales means for DC Universe service, Lee still sees DC Universe as the future of the publisher, with subscriptions remaining active and outpacing digital comic sales. Quote, I think there's always going to be room for a tool that allows us to engage directly with fans. That is the future. If I could borrow that line from digital, Lee said, quote, we have nothing really like it. So creating something that is the place where all DC fans can come together, buy, read, enjoy, and connect and communicate with or share community with one another is vital and important. We're still going to have original content going through, but that slate is still being worked on. There will be announcements going forward. End quote. So is this good news for DC or bad? I can't tell.
Well, I think that when you look at the changing landscapes of digital content, DC Universe and comic books and being physical media is not as wanted or not actually appreciated and such. I think it's a mix of like people don't like what the comics directions, they don't like some of the stories and marketing as well, which one of the reasons why I got DC Universe is because of the comics and because of the looking into like a much more easier, more streamlined way to look at, like, say, on cell phones and on PC, tablets, and such to read comments and such, which is so helpful, and it's a lot easier to to read old stuff, newer stuff, stuff in the 80s and 90s. I think if you start promoting that stuff, I think if they start promoting it more, and with the new streaming service, HBO Max and such, maybe being part of that, maybe putting more newer stuff there, and I don't know, maybe raising I don't know what is going to do about the whole comics and bringing new comics in, but I think in a more safer, a more much more, not safe, but more of a place that's more comfortable and easier to put in the people's hands. More people like this, so maybe more digital. Go to this, not just DC Universe, but also have a way to get to, like, an app to basically say, okay, here you go, boom, 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 you can buy all the comics there. So,
New 52, do you think it's good news or bad news?
I think for DC Universe, it's good news. It sounds like maybe they're planning more original content, like the Young Justice comics that took place between seasons 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for that. As far as the digital sales across like Amazon or Comixology plateauing, to me, it's been really strange that a digital comic costs exactly the same as a physical comic. Why is it the same price if you don't have to invest in like shipping or actual paper and ink, So that it could also be another factor as to why people aren't really buying.
Yeah. I think another thing is, this is part of the internet, and I'm somewhat guilty of it too. I know a lot of people are. Is pirating websites are very good at getting this stuff out fast for free, and I've read a pirated comic or two, but I generally go and then buy the comic physical, like when they come out in trade, because I like being in the conversation. But I know I'm accusing myself, but I'm putting myself on trial here. But I think part of it is not only do you have pirated websites, which means most people reading online are going to read through DC Universe, which is an easy way to read online. You have so much stuff to read, or they're going to buy physical still because they're keeping up. I don't see where DC sees a future market in individual comic sales, because let's be realistic, $4 a comic is a lot, right? We were talking about New 52 is reading George Perez's run. What if you wanted to buy what New 52 is reading this week in physical copies, you're probably paying about $16, $17 a week, right? And last week, yes, which is a lot. and I think like that's stupid, you know? Like why like you can't do a book club if you're paying like 16, 17
Yes, it's
dollars a
totally
week.
gonna.
And I think it's part of where DC
It's
Universe
totally
is the
gonna
future.
affect
And I
that.
do think it was weird hearing Jim Lee's
Oh, Nathan?
I'm going out. Okay,
Nathan, your audio's a little bit.
okay. I'll try to fix it. Someone.
I'll chime in real quick then while you try to do that. I don't know if it's good news or bad news. I don't really follow much of that kind of stuff. I just know, for me personally, like, so my first experience with like digital comics was like Injustice, and then the New 52. Like, pretty much all my New 52 comics, I got like digital copies. And as convenient as they were, and I totally get that aspect of it. I just like having a hardcover. And I kind of like regret now like having spent so much on like all the New 52 stuff digitally, and so I'm just
Okay, I
more
think
of
it's
a
fixed.
hardcover person.
I agree. I think part of the problem is while they're accessible, they're so expensive, right? And I think when you look at the future of DC, it really needs to be how do we move forward as a company, and how do we do something new? Because it was really interesting. I was reading like Amazon's policies, and one of their jobs is they try to rapidly change their entire business every year, which is kind of crazy. But I think DC kind of needs to figure out like go in some rapid new direction, or they're going to outpace themselves. And I think it's what you're starting to see. And I think Marvel's probably having the same problem. I feel like if it wasn't for House of X, like revitalizing the X-Men line right now, House of X, you guys, real quick, is so good. It's like Powers and House of X are like maybe some of the best comics I've read all year. But and they're game changing. But I think part of the problem, right, is both of the companies have these giant subscription services, which a lot of people are doing and then just waiting. And there's no problem with that. And for some people, to pay $60, $70 a month, or I mean a year, not a month. That's a lot of money for a month. But per year, and that's more comics than they'll read, or that they would buy normally, right? But now they read more because it's free or a lot cheaper to access. But I think DC is going to get themselves in the hole right now if they try to make DC Universe the future of the platform, unless they really make an effort, or the future of DC, unless they make an effort to make lots of comic exclusives, right? Like if, let's say, an Injustice 3 comes out and it's a DC exclusive, right? Like I think something like that could be massive. But part of the problem is DC loves to do this thing where they say, hey, we're going to have Walmart exclusives. And then you get a year later and they're like, nah, we're not going to make them exclusives anymore. Comic stores can buy the full thing. They can buy the little individual issues, run the back catalog. It's like, then what's the point of having a Walmart exclusive if it's not going to be exclusive anymore,
Yeah, that's the thing. The exclusives are going same with video games and all that stuff. Which part is just each one's exclusive and everything else. If you want to just buy that one part of the game and such, and it begins more frustration. Less people wait to go and buy a product. The best thing to is to just say, you know what, release it digitally. And probably if there's physical places, then fine. But I think later on, people are going to probably do more, like I said, have a system like DC Universe, which I think is going to be the future. So I think they should put more of the effort into DC Universe. So I think that's going to be a change. I think it'll be a more positive change.
So last year at New York Comic Con, they announced the DC Universe exclusive Young Justice comic. Do you think they'll announce a bunch more exclusive comics, or do you think they're still going to test the waters with just like one little small thing, or is that just a one and done thing?
Probably going to be more. There will be more exclusive comics, I believe.
So you think that they're going to start like in 2020 like a much bigger line? Because that's a little bit what it sounded like to me with the Jim Lee comment, but it's unclear. I'd love for there to be more exclusive comics. I think having like an Injustice 2.5 or something, which takes place after Injustice 2, whereas in the Injustice 2 comic takes place before Injustice 2, just because that's not confusing or anything. But I think that could be a big pull. Is there any other comics that you'd love to be exclusive to DCU? New 50, like,
I
I
can't
get
really
it.
think of anything that I'd like to be exclusive, but the only thing
Yeah.
about digital first comics is that they're a lot shorter. The art isn't as detailed,
Yeah.
so it's a little hard for people to also want to spend money on those types of comics. So if they come to DC Universe and they come with your subscription, then actually I can see more people out trying to buy a subscription or have a month to month or even a year.
But you definitely need like a big comic series, right? It can't
Yeah,
be
you
like
need something big.
it
Like
can't be
a
like
new
yeah.
Wonder Woman. Like Wonder Woman, what she's doing with, I don't know, Batgirl, a team up or something.
Yeah, maybe like I don't know. This is hard. This is a hard question. I think Injustice
It
3 is a good
is.
I think Injustice 3 is a good one. Like or Injustice 2 sequel comic rather than the prequel comic. I think Young Justice exclusive like tie-in comic or whatever will be fine, but it has to be like really well written, you know? Maybe because I know DC Universe wants to be more child friendly in the future, although it doesn't look like it right now, but maybe trying to get like the Wonder comics over, like something more like all Wonder comics are available exclusively on DC Universe. So that's your Naomi, your Dialect H for Hero, Young Justice. I think that could work, but I think DC is going to have a hard time finding like great comic series to be exclusive. Because part of it, right, is with when you hear like exclusives, right? You hear Young Justice Outsiders. You know, that's not a big exclusive. Titans, Swamp Thing, Doom Patrol, these are massive exclusives. So if you want to do that for comics, you really need to find massive comics, right? And I don't know if DC and generally comics haven't done that digitally. Well, the last bit of news this week comes from DC Universe's office hours. DC announced that they are prepping for DC Universe Year One, which is their clever name for the Year One anniversary. Which brings us to our new segment, the road to DC Universe Year One. So Applejack said in the office hours, hanging out with DC Daily for the days we're celebrating will be the place to revel in all things Year One. Those folks are going to be partying hard. We'll have some lovely reasons to hang out in the community that will build a more heartfelt than action-oriented. That will be a bit more heartfelt than action-oriented. This is a very interesting quote. That served both as the bit of a send-off to the old ways and a heralding in of the new, as 2.0 will be peeking over the horizon by that time. New segments will be doing some great retrospectives, basically a lot of how much we've grown sentiment. So for this segment, I want to look at the different parts of DC Universe each week and talk about how they've grown. So I don't know how much you guys remember about the comics and how that section's grown. Like, what do you guys remember about the comics when they came out?
Oh my gosh, just how small of a selection it was.
Yes, the small selection, but I gave it a pass because mostly I looked at the comics, but also I was happy having Batman the Animated Series, watching that on loop person. I was like watching that and watching the old episodes and just marvel at that brilliance and, Justice League, so stuff like the animated stuff kept me going until like Titans, which I actually did a whole video review series every episode and such, which it's was an interesting trip, that show for our first season. But I think for the most part I enjoyed. I was like, okay, I give this platform a shot, and the early days were rough, but I think I have an appreciation for it because it's grown in content now.
One thing I remember is when DC Universe first came out, they did this. They tried to do this thing where they curated comics, and I remember reading the plan. I'm like, I don't understand how they thought this would work, but they would
Oh my
have
gosh.
they would have a new series every week, like new like mini series, like 12 new issues every week, and then they would rotate them out 2 weeks later. So they were like, we're gonna be clever, and we're gonna have the new Teen Titans numbers 12 through 20. And you can only read them for this 2 weeks. And then the week after, they do 20 through 32, and then 32 to 40. And what happened though is it's like you're like reading through because you're like, oh, I should probably read 1 through 20 while it's still there. But but they're so long, you don't get to one. You won't get to something like I got to like 14 and like binge read while I was on vacation and like had a giant car ride. I got through like 14 issues and then they were gone. And I was like, well, there's no point in my reading the rest of them for the next like 3 weeks because I'm behind, right? And I think that was part of, and then like they did the same with Long Halloween. They did numbers 1 through 3. Long Halloween was you had 2 weeks for the entirety of Long Halloween, 12 issues, which is a full graphic novel. And then the next week it was Dark Victory, which was the sequel. And so it was just so much to read. It was just so hard. And then they would disappear and you'd never see them again.
And the thing is, we didn't even get a warning as to when they were going to leave. They would just be gone.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that format or whatever, like giving you just a certain amount of time. I'm glad they changed that, obviously. And along with they improved on like giving you heads up when things are going to be coming and going. When I got the service, like I got it for the exclusive like shows like Titans and Young Justice, and the comics, of course. The comics in the beginning were let down, but now they're it's fantastic. As far as like the movies and stuff, I understand people are still upset they don't have like all like the new DC movies and stuff, or the DC extended universe, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, really, I already own all the movies I want to. That I like, people need to just go out there and buy it and support their DC.
Yeah, I think
I did sign up for. Yeah, I did sign up for the actual video content. But that's not sustainable really because it's such a slow rollout of each show. Once a week, you get a new episode. So the comics really revitalized my like desire to renew when they like went through the whole explosion, because I was actually questioning whether I was going to renew or not back in the day when I had to sit there and like binge read Death of Superman because it was going to go away in like 4 hours.
And then did it actually go away?
It did. And then the next, like, it came back soon after. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just wasted my whole. So it added to like the negative feeling that I had. Like, I just binge read that whole thing. And for what? It's right back now.
It did feel like you had to, like, it was like force reading. It was like, oh, I got to read all this right now. And I was working crazy hours during that time, like when they were cycling through like the Titans and the Dark Victory and all that stuff, and I didn't get a chance to read them all, and it was a bummer. But like I said, and we all know, they fixed that, which is awesome because that's a definite thumbs up improvement there.
One thing I will say though, like I think what they were trying to do, and this obviously didn't work, is they were trying to create these series that people would get really would all read together, right? And then they would talk about them in the community section. And to an extent, it worked. I mean, everyone was talking about the new Teen Titans when it was like when the little bits were coming out, or at least when 1 through 8, 12 through 20 were out. But then people were like got really sick of it really quickly because they were like then they got behind and then it all fell apart. And it was only complaining. And part of it too is the thing I remember is no one knew who Applejack was when the service started. Like this is something we'll talk about next week or whenever we do the community section. But Applejack didn't have a verified tag. There was no post that said, "I'm Applejack," blah 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 blah. And the office and the Watchtower section was literally just random posts. Like there was no announcements that were made.
Oh yeah,
like
I gotta say I'm sorry for interrupting, but the forums of DC Universe. Oh my goodness. I was like, okay, what type of forwards? I was picturing maybe like a Pro Boards thing or something, but I'm like, this is something right out of 2003. Scratch that. I've seen forums from 2003 that has more cohesion than this. I was just flabbergasted.
Awesome. Well, we are actually running out of time.
We'll continue this next week.
Yes, we will continue this next week. So if you like this podcast, please let us know what you thought. And next week we will talk about Young Justice and more. And since we have over 10 subscribers on Google Play, yay, we will be expanding to Apple Podcasts by next week. And we are now on YouTube and SoundCloud. See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye. Have a good one, y'all.
Peace.